All right, so here, I don't know what to do with my hands. Well, welcome back to the shop. I tell you, you're just a sucker for punishment, aren't you? Well, today I've got a 2008 CBR600, the Pirate Edition, the RR. Here's the issue. He bought it, the battery wasn't charging. Thought it was a stator, so he changed the stator out, put the cover back on. Next day, found out he had a bad oil leak from the stator cover side. Still no charging. So what could it be? Maybe the old Warren G regulator, rectifier, maybe an issue with a brand new stator, maybe something altogether. Oh, hope it's not wiring, but hey, like you know, I enjoy the wiring side of things. So come along with me. Maybe you've got a bike like this, or a friend's got one, or maybe you just enjoy watching me sweat in here. Whatever the case may be, I want to thank you so much for being here and working with me today. And welcome back to the shop. No, welcome back to Butler Custom Motorcycle Shop. Before we jump in on wrenching real quick, I just want to take a moment to thank all of you guys that have subscribed, viewed our channels, viewed our videos, got notifications and ringing the bell and all that. It really means a lot to me. It's free to you to subscribe, but it means so much to us as a channel to keep putting out videos for you guys. And also, you know, the main premise of this channel was that we could get an old junkyard bike, somebody's backyard, fix it up, you and I, maybe customize it however you want, and then give it away to one of our subscribers. And so we're still doing that. We're still looking for a good donor bike for us. But in the meantime, we're going to just keep putting out videos. Maybe you've got a variety of bikes that you like to work on or just get educated on. You know, I watch a lot of car shows, and I'm not a car mechanic by any means. Now, if one of our vehicles breaks, we're just so poor we got to fix it ourselves. But I'm not a big car guy, but I like those shows, and so that might be your case. You're not really that big of a motorcycle person, but you like the knowledge of learning how things work and, more importantly, how you fix them. And so thanks so much for being a part of what we're doing here, and welcome to our family. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, be a part of what we're doing, and make sure you hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when any new video is uploaded. I want to try to hit about a video a week, depending on what I've got in the shop here. But if not, well, yeah, I think I can do that. You guys have really encouraged me to keep on making these videos while I'm working. A lot of people don't realize the extra time it takes to stop and move the camera. And did I just spit? Stop and move the camera and place it where you can see it, and then kind of talk to you along the way and let you know what I'm doing and how it's going. Then to go back and edit all of it, format it, upload it, and all that. And then all of the comments that I get, I love those. That's probably my favorite, is the comments, because I get to talk to you guys. Not only that, some of you give pretty good tips on how I can improve and do things a little bit easier or better. And so that's really the great thing about the motorcycle community, is that it's really a family, and I appreciate being a part of it. So thanks so much. If you haven't subscribed, do that right now. I don't know why I'm rubbing this back tire like it's friendly to me. Diagnosing a charging system on the bike is really one of the easiest electrical things you'll probably ever do on a motorcycle, because all of your connections and stuff are easy to get to that you need to test with your multimeter. So the first thing we'll do on this CBR is take the seat off, which the customer brought in just with it sitting on there. And I'll take this off not to disconnect the battery, but to see exactly what type of current we're working with here. I'll just snap that on there and see what kind of voltage we have. So we're starting with a battery that's a 12.2 volts. That's a little on the low side. You like to see them around 12.5 or 12.6, but for testing purposes, this is going to be just fine. So if you're going to test the charging system on the bike, it's really good knowledge to have to understand exactly how does the charging system on the bike works. Fortunate thing is, it's kind of universal really for most all bikes, newer bikes. If you get into the older bikes, like the Panhead that I have, you run into generators and things like that, which are completely different. But on most new bikes, I'd say, I don't know, 70s up, 1970s up, you're going to have the same basic type of charging system on all those bikes. So let's start with what produces the power or the current to run all your things on your bike, including recharging your battery. The first thing that's going to be, and your most important thing, is your stator. So this is a stator. It's just copper wires rolled around a coil with a bunch of them on there. And on this particular bike, it's a three-pronged, three-wire coil. You'll notice all the wires are the same colors because really they all are going to do the same thing. And this puts out AC current that goes out from a rotor fitting over that's magnetized, that's on your crankshaft. As your bike runs, this rotor spins. So what this plugs into, since this is AC current, and each of these wires put out about, I think on this bike, about 15 volts a piece, you can't have this run directly back to your battery. It's way too much voltage. It'd blow your battery up and blow every light out that you've got. So you got to have something for that, which is called a rectifier, a regulator, a Warren G, you might say is what I call it. Same three yellow wires that will actually plug into your stator. So power comes from your stator, AC current into your rectifier regulator. From that comes out the proper voltage that feeds back in to your battery, and when you rev, this will release more voltage so that your battery stays currently charged. So this kind of throttles down and converts the power source that's coming from your stator. So if you have a breakdown with this stator, you have maybe no power coming out of two of these wires, then your rectifier is going to do its job, but it's not going to put out enough that you need. On the other hand, if you have something going really crazy with this, this could put out too much power. What you'll see is you'll see a burnt connector just melted, or you'll see your battery just blow and bubble out and swell out. And it'll usually fry your rectifier as well. My standard for changing a stator or rectifier, really any part of a charging system, I always replace both the stator and the rectifier. Stators, the good ones, are going to run you a penny. Rectifiers are not. So I just go ahead and make it a good habit to buy a rectifier with a stator anytime I replace those. So that's what we did in this case, but let's find out why it's not charging. Is it in the stator? Is it in the rectifier coming out? It's hard to believe that a new stator the guy put in just all of a sudden quit working the next day, which tells me, was it installed correctly? Was it a bad stator? Or is there something else going on? And why the oil leak? Did he not put, a gasket back in? Did he forget it? Or did he just maybe try to seal it and it's leaking? Or is it another issue? So let's find that out right now. Well, already I think I found the issue with this charging system. I went to unhook the rectifier and just unhooking the harnesses here to test everything, and went to unhook the harness that runs from the rectifier down to the stator, and the whole wires just came out. I have never seen that happen before. Let's get this cover off since we can't test it. There's no need to test because the connector came out with it. So really no need to test the stator. Issue is going to be with the stator. Since we bought a new rectifier, we don't even have to test this, but I will show you a quick way and how to test it if this wire on yours is still intact and you're not getting any charge. So real quick here, I'm going to show you the easiest way to test if your stator is indeed putting out what it should be. Now imagine that this was bolted onto your stator cover and on the bike. What you would do is follow the wire that leads from your rectifier and your stator. You would just simply unhook the harness. Oh, good night. All right, next you'll take a multimeter. You will make sure that when you set it on volts that it is on AC. Not DC, but AC. Okay? Once that's good, and I'm going to set this where you can see it. Of course, it's not going to read properly because it's not on the bike, but here's what you do. You'll take your negative lead, you'll attach it to your negative battery terminal. You will start the bike up. Then, from each prong, with the bike running and just idling, you will stick one in there. You should see about 15 AC volts. About there, 15 AC volts. There, 15 AC volts. For this bike, that's what it should run. That lets you know that your stator is indeed putting out exactly what it should be. If you get one that's dead, that's not putting out anything, it's a bad stator. If you get one that's putting out 32 instead of 15, bad stator. That is the easiest way to test your stator. Now you can also on-read the stator with it off the bike, or I guess you could even do it on. You'll turn it to horseshoe ohms, stick one in, one connector, stick the other in another side, and it should read 0. All right, let's try this side, 0. Now we'll take this last one out and try the two that we haven't tried yet, 0. So we know this is a good stator, it's ohming out. So you can also do that test, and you can do it with it on the bike as well, I believe. And that lets you know that none of the coils in there are bad and that everything's good. Usually the easiest test though is just with it on the bike, with the bike running, and see what voltage it's putting out. Now you can test the rectifier as well. However, we're replacing it, so there's really no test that we need to do. He can maybe keep it as a backup if it's still good. With that whole wire and harness pulling out of the stator cover, I doubt that the rectifier is any good. So we'll take the cover off now and see what we're looking at. So these stator covers are very, very thin. I don't know if, maybe not thin's the word to use. How about cheap? So you never want to use a gun to break these bolts off. These on this bike are 8mm. Really doesn't matter what rotation you go, just make sure you take them off kind of staggered. Now once I do get these kind of broke loose, I will take a gun just to zip them out, just because it's easier. Been a pretty nice day in the shop today. Usually it's hotter than a one-chip challenge out here, but today it's like, I don't know, in the mid 80s, and when it's usually been close to 100, that makes for a cool day. Okay. I see a lot of gasket sealant around. Make sure I didn't miss any bolt holes. There is a dowel pin here and one on the opposite side as well. There's also a little tab here that's made for you to pry with, and one down here. Okay, so I've got it broken free now. And let's just go ahead and pull it off and see what the issue was. Now, for you fellows that have done this before, you can tell me exactly what that issue is. Now understand, this whole assembly here, this whole stator, sets not on the outside of this rotor, but on the inside. Inside here is lined with magnets. As this turns, and this is stationary, that's what builds up your current to go out. Do you see the issue here? These wires are not to run on top like this. These wires are supposed to be on the bottom and run along the bottom on the top of the case here, come under this retainer and come out here. See that? Therefore, this stator was put on upside down. So the wires that ran out of here, the moment you put them across this, and by this angle, it looks like they ran across here and tried to come out. The minute you squeeze that on with the wires coming over top of this, this will be like a knife as soon as you turn the bike on. Actually, it would have been hard to put the cover on with the wires, 3 thick wires, coming across the top of this. So your wires are supposed to run flipped over and run on the outs up here, on the outside and out here. Never even to be close to the inside here. And so that's definitely the issue. Now, I also found out why it was leaking oil. With the wires running on the outside and running across this, it leaves no room for this to fully seat. So when you get this on here, it'll line up. You can even run your bolts in, but there'll be a little gap in between. Also, I noticed there was no gasket on this. So they just used gasket sealer on it. And then in doing that, it ran this in too far, which cut those wires, but left the wires sticking out to where when you torque everything down, remember I said this is cheap? Look what happened. You see that? Now when it's closed, you can't see it. But if I push it open, you see that? Again, closed, you can't really see it. Open, there. So this cracked the case because these wires were running over top of this. So I called the customer and said, hey, who put your stator in? And they said, well, I did. I said, okay, well, it was put in backwards. And he said, well, I put it in the way that the other one was put in from the previous owner. And I said, well, that's why that one wasn't charging either. It was put in backwards. So what's the moral of the story? Never put back something just based on the way that it was, unless verifying it. So good idea just to go ahead and get you like a service manual. You can find a lot of them for free online under like in a PDF form. So you just want to take a straight blade, straight razor, just to clean up all of this. You know, there's gaskets that go on this, so you don't have to do all this. You want to be very careful using a razor around any kind of hoses, especially down here with your water hose. So just take your time. Oh, that's pretty good and nice and smooth. I'll run some cleaner over it. Just make sure we don't have any bumps or ridges. Just take your finger and run across there. Everything should be nice and smooth and flat. You don't have to visually have it all off. Don't take you something in here very abrasive, because you'll cut a rut in it, and then no matter what gasket you use, it'll leak. especially down here in this area. Oil gathers down here, so you don't want to gouge anything down there. Of course, we don't have to worry about cleaning this up because we're replacing it. So we'll get this cover ordered. I was hoping the leak was just from not using a gasket and using RTV, but it's not. So we will get a new cover ordered. When that comes in, we'll go ahead and put the new stator in correctly. I'll show you that. And then we'll snap a new rectifier on there, and we'll start it up. Also, it's a good time while you're in here cleaning, inspect your rotor where the magnets are on the inside of this. Just kind of run your finger across, make sure there's no big burrs or gouges and it's not wore out in the spot, because it might be that you might need to replace this, but this looks good. This is the LMX73 rotor. I know that because it says right here, LMX73. All right, so we got our new stator cover in, and it looks nice and clean and new and a lot better. I already got my gasket set up on here. Of course, we got everything clean, and get the good gaskets, fellas. Spend a little dime, makes it a lot better. And then we're gonna go ahead and got everything clean now. We put the new stator now inside this new stator cover. I took off this retainer here, and I'm just gonna move it out of the way and put this stator in now. And remember, it goes in upside down, and we'll get the stator set exactly kind of how we want to. This right here, this rubber piece, you want to kind of loosen up a little and kind of move it to where you got a lot of slack here, and can kind of play with the wires a little bit and get them down to where you need them to be. And then just take that retainer pin, we'll move it back over and put it seated up where it should be. The main thing is, these wires get in the way. We might just take this off completely, just so that we can have the room to put the wires in correctly. They can be a little bit of a pain, so let's just take that out. We'll move our wires now where we can put them on there. See, I got this wire still sticking out, so we'll take this retainer completely off, because the main thing is you want to make sure, guys, you get those wires up underneath that retainer. That's what's important. So we'll take this off, take a little clip or a little extension here, poke them wires up in there good, just so they're covered. Now you can take your retainer, put it back over that, and then there you go. Now look how nice laid down those wires are. That's important when they go back over that rotor. So put some blue Loctite on it, on that bolt, 10 millimeter, and then what we're going to do is just, it's going to be I think 10 foot-pounds for this right here. We'll tighten it down, make sure our gaskets on that rubber seated good. Some guys RTV around this, but I don't, because the rubber does a good job of sealing. Most of your oil is going to be running in the bottom here anyway, and not up here at the top. So, and you got your new gasket going to set behind that. So let's take this out now, and we'll go ahead and Loctite all these bolts, and then we'll torque them down to 9 foot-pounds is what the manual calls for this. So everything's torqued down, ready to go. Everything's fitted down in there well, and gasket's on. So let's go ahead now and just stick this on there, and it should be careful because it's magnetized. So get everything lined up here how you want it, and be careful, it'll snap right on just like that. And then just a good tug, nice fit. Man, look how nice that new cover looks with the new gasket done the proper way, no RTV mess everywhere. So we'll take our bolts now, and I've already cleaned the threads up on them, and we'll Loctite them. They'll be 10 foot-pounds on these stator cover bolts. And we'll crisscross applesauce and put their bolts in just by hand for now until we can get ready to torque them down. We'll make sure that our brackets line up here back on the stator cover as they should. That one small bracket you see down at the bottom, that holds one of the fairing bolts on. So you want to make sure you put that back on. Now if you wanted to at this time, you can go ahead and start the bike up and go ahead and test all your prongs right here. 15 AC volts a piece is what it should read for this make and model year on this bike. But we know this is a good stator, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to run the wires up and hook it up. Okay, I got the new rectifier now, and this was a little thicker to fit on the bike because the thickness here was the same, but the thickness where the bolts go into right here was a little bit thinner on the other rectifier, which was aftermarket. This one is a little bit better rectifier, so it's thicker. So I changed the bolts out so that we got clearance on that, and we'll just snap it on there. All right, this rectifier comes with the correct harness that snaps on to this metal piece. Really makes it nice because you don't have your wires kind of flopping around. So let's snap them on there now, and then just hook up our connectors. Now this bracket has ground wires that come off and go over that bracket. Now this rectifier come with these booties, so let's just cut those off because they won't fit over it with the bracket, so we don't need those. And then we'll just tuck our wires and we're done. All right, so let's get our, go ahead and get our connectors on for our multimeter on the negative and the positive. Then let's go ahead and turn over to volts and make sure that it's on DC. We're reading 12.2. We'll go ahead and turn the key on, and then we'll go ahead and start it up. All right, so as you can see, we did a successful charging system fix on this. Now the best part of it is to get the fairings back on and seat back on and take this baby for a test drive and see how she does, and make sure when we get back she's still charging up good. So you and I got everything back together. Let's take it down the road and see how she does. Now listen, my hot dogging days are long gone, so we won't be doing any of that, especially on the customer's bike. So let's just take it down the road, come back after a quick ride, and see if she's still charging up good, and then we'll release her back to her owner. All right, well there you have it. We've successfully fixed the charging issue on this 2008 CBR600RR Pirate Edition. And I thank you so much for being here in the shop with me, and I'm glad that you and I worked well together and got this fixed. So don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share what's going on here. We really do appreciate it. And tell your mom and them I said hi.